Hey, hi, how you doing? Hey, listen, I'll be right with you. I got a couple more paragraphs that I got proof on this book here. I know you like books. Why don't you browse around and snoop a little bit and maybe pick up a page or two, and I'll be right with you, okay? I appreciate it. Hey, by the way, how do you like my ergonomic rocking chair? Isn't this neat? Check it out. Oh, hi, you're back. Have a seat. I saw you looking at some of the books. Wasn't that big, thick one there neat? I wish I had that book when I first met Jesus Christ. I had that book for a handful of the books that I have in the library here at the beginning of my walk. I've really gone through a lot of stupidity that I've gone through the last few years. That book there, it's called a hexapla. And in there are 6 English translations, all before and including the King James Bible of 1611. In addition to that, it's got the Greek text right above those 6 translations. It's an incredible book. And of the couple hundred different churches that I've been in, there isn't probably a single person in any of those churches that knows that that book exists. And as a matter of fact, there are a lot of my friends who are sitting in pews today that don't even know that there are quite a few English Bibles before the King James. And books like this point that out. I love these kind of books. They've set me free. You looked at a couple of other books there. You looked at that, The Outcast's Comforted. It's written by a Baptist back in the late 1700s here in the United States. He had a church in Philadelphia, and he discovered some things that I discovered from reading these books. He got kicked out. Fortunately for him, most of the Baptist congregation liked the way he preached and believed that what he was saying was truthful, and so they went and started another building, and they started the church in Philadelphia. His sermons, this is the only one that I have a copy of, a photocopy of. They're beautiful. This sermon here, I hope to reprint one day. It's the sermon that he gave to his church on the Sunday that they had to leave their Baptist church and go start somewhere else because they believed and discovered that there was a little 4-letter word in their King James Bible that the King James translators didn't handle very well. And it, well, quite frankly, gave God a bad black eye. And they went about telling the world and telling Philadelphia that God was a whole lot bigger than they had made him based on their King James Bible here. I guess from Orthodox point of view, he became, from a Baptist, he became a heretic. That other book that you see over there, that's the one that I'm working on here. He was a preacher too, back 50 or so years ago here in the United States, Louis Abbott. And the same thing happened to him that happened to this Baptist back in 1792. He was a preacher. Someone challenged him on what he believed about hell. And he took up that challenge, and he decided to go into books like this, and 2 or 3 years later he found out that he was wrong and the guy who challenged him was right. And he got kicked out of his denomination too. I got to do this manuscript for him, and I've got to go over to his house and talk to him about some of the changes. Would you like to come along? You would? All right, come on, let's go. Well, Louis, as I was telling my friend here, how I got started in this whole thing with all these books in my office, it all started a few years ago when I became totally disgusted with my Christianity. I got tired of living a defeated life. I got tired of going to church every day with what seemed to be a bunch of hypocrites just like me. And when I came to that place, I finally cried out to God and said, I've had enough. And in that moment of time, God, in His sovereignty, put a little booklet in my hand, a little tiny booklet called Just What Do You Mean Eternity by a man named J. Preston Eby. I read that booklet and it totally changed my life. And it returned that joy and that peace and that love that I had at the beginning of my Christianity. And in reading that booklet, I said, if that is true, then I need to spend a whole lot of time proving and verifying whether every word in that book was true. And in no time at all, I came to Louis Abbott. Someone said, if you want to know about that word eternity and the Greek word behind it, aion, there's only one person in the world that knows as much about that word, and that's you, Louis Abbott. And found out that you were living right down the road from me, a couple hours away, and went and knocked on your door, and I asked you a bunch of questions. I asked you about the word aion, and in the time that I've been talking to you, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt there's probably nobody on the face of this earth that knows more about that word aion and the English word eternal than you. And I just came here to introduce my friend here to you, and I'd like you to share with him some of the things that you know about this word aion, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about hell also. How did you get into this, seems like an infatuation with this Greek church history, hell? I mean, how did you get into this?
Well, it's an interesting study, an interesting story. I was pastoring a little church south of Stover at the time, and I became acquainted with an old gentleman, an old German by the name of Linloff, Henry Linloff. And I soon found out that Brother Linloff didn't believe in eternal hell. And I'll never forget walking down a little country road one day, and I looked at Brother Linloff and I felt so sorry for him. The poor old man doesn't believe in eternal hell. But he kept telling me that I need to study the subject a little more, and I did take him at his word, and I went to studying. Took me about 2.5 to 3 years of searching the Greek text, the best of my ability with the King James Version, the American Standard Version, and some other versions like Weymouth's Modern English, and dictionaries, encyclopedias, to prove, not that I was wrong, but to prove that Brother Linloff was wrong. That was my goal. I couldn't understand how I could be wrong. It had the word hell in my Bible many times, so how could I be wrong? But after searching all of those years, or 3 years approximately, I had to go to Brother Linloff and tell him, well, I've been taught wrong. What you are telling me is true. And as a result of that, I got booted out of the ministry, and I've been independent ever since then. And I studied, and I love the Word of God. I love to study, and as over a period of years, I collected somewhat over 3,000 books here in my library. I studied Greek 2 semesters from Moody, and I took a course from Loyola University, the Catholics, a real large Catholic Greek course, And then I went over into Kansas for 8 weeks and took more Greek studies.